Good idea, Steve.
Wow.
Thanks.
New year, new ideas. Wow.
Yeah, what the hell?
Oh, it gets better.
Uh-oh.
It gets better.
What?
I'm ready to improve our podcast 100%.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
And how do you plan to do that?
Which one of us is leaving?
It's my basement, so
I guess I'm fired.
As you know, there has been something lacking from our podcasts for some time.
Really?
Yes, indeed.
money?
I don't know about that.
No.
Wait,
No.
I'm drawing a blank. I don't know
Yeah.
about you, Ron.
Liquor.
No. No, we've had some of that.
Women?
No. AT Banter podcast now with 100% more cowbell.
Yeah. I like it.
Uh,
Nice.
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, come on. 2018. Bring her home, Betsy.
Is that an actual cowbell?
This is an actual cowbell.
From an actual cow?
No, this is actually a drum set cowbell. You see, it's got the mounting clamp
Linda
and everything.
has
You
one
put it
too.
onto a... What? You've been holding out all this time? You've had a cowbell?
Yeah, Linda's got one upstairs somewhere.
Are you kidding me?
I'm kidding.
Why
No.
would you
Oh.
tell us that?
Oh, I know, really.
Yeah, no, she probably doesn't know where it is. But
Yeah, she'd know. In other words, she'd probably hidden it from you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Maybe.
awesome. Okay, so Ryan, your job is going to be to find somewhere to hang that.
Yeah,
then
yeah,
we
we
need to
gotta-
mount that somewhere.
Yeah, we got to mount that on the table somewhere.
All right.
Yeah, so that at any point we can just pick up the stick and...
I think
cow.
that there should be some sort of a keyword that anytime a guest says the word like whatever, then we just run over to the cowbell and wail on it.
Look at the waveform that puts out, too. It's quite an impressive looking waveform.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. AT Banter. Now with more cowbell.
Mississippi Queen.
This is the AT Banter Podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to yet another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
What you doing? You're jumping the gun.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta wait. You gotta make them wait.
There's all the talk of Pornhub. It's premature.
Banter.
Whoa. Well, 2018's off to a great start so far. I am Rob Minot, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Ryan Fleury
Hey there.
and Mr. Steve Barclay.
That would be me.
And who's our special guest, Steve?
Our special guest today is Luis Perez.
No, that is the incorrect answer. Our special guest is more.
Cowbell.
More cowbell.
Ding,
AT
ding,
Banter now with 100% more cowbell. I know, it's exciting, right? Don't everyone talk at once.
And we're not even going to explain it. You just sit with that, audience, gentle audience. We now have a cowbell.
That's right.
I'm not even going to tell you why we have a cowbell.
Our numbers are
We just
going
have a
to
cowbell.
skyrocket now when people find out that we've got a cowbell.
AT cowbell.
Other podcasts will have to scramble to catch up.
That is true. I have not heard a cowbell in any sort
Nor
of
have I.
other
Nope.
podcast that I've ever come across. So, yeah,
We are cowbell pioneers.
we are. So it is 2018. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, gentlemen.
This is our first recording in 2018. Anything you've heard to this point, it was canned.
Yeah, that's right. Well, wait, don't tell them that. What are you doing?
Sorry, it wasn't
Indulging all
canned.
our secrets. We were working feverishly over the holidays. We didn't take Christmas off at all, did
Not
we?
a bit.
Nope.
No.
Not a day.
No.
No.
Slaving away for our listenership.
Yep. And you know what a new year means?
What's that?
World Junior Hockey.
Which is almost over.
It's almost over. Yeah, we had the quarterfinals today.
And we won.
Yeah, Canada won.
8-2.
Yeah. Oh, was that the final?
Last I checked, there was
Yeah.
like under a minute to go. So I'm assuming it ended 8-2.
Could be 9-2 by now.
It could be,
Yeah.
but it's over now. So we played the Czechs on Thursday.
Yeehar.
Mm-hmm.
Czechs have a good team this year.
They do. They beat Finland today in the shootout.
That's right. That was the early game.
Mm-hmm. And Rob's glazed over.
Yay.
And this is in hockey
Sports.
talk on AT Banter.
I'll just play the cowbell. No, that's it. That's the big excitement. You have the holidays. You guys hockey. Really?
Hockey.
How was your holiday?
Pretty darn fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for, I don't know, this year, well, I guess it happens every year, but this year it seems like more people were sick.
Oh yeah.
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 Everybody was falling around me.
Well, and you survived.
I did.
Excellent.
Actually, yeah.
I
That's
only caught it
unusual
briefly.
for you.
That is unusual.
Usually,
Yeah, usually this time of year I get nailed, but yeah.
and nailed good.
Yeah, no, not this year, but knock on wood. Better yet, knock on cowbell.
Oh, this is great, Ryan. So your job's like seriously for next week. You need to mount that somewhere where that's easily
I'm
accessible.
not mounting a cowbell.
You're mounting a cowbell. Can you do a rim shot on a cowbell? Not really.
Apparently not.
Hey.
No difference whatsoever.
Well,
There's different tones of cowbells, though, so we could get like 3 more.
Ooh, cowbell row.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
okay.
I like it.
Well, we blew all our time that we would have spent talking about any sort of news articles that we saw over the past 3 weeks with talk about cowbell, and now it's time for our interview. So,
All right.
hey Ryan,
Rob.
what are we doing today?
Today we're talking with educator and author and also advocate of universal design, Luis Perez.
Woohoo.
Hello.
Hi, Luis. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, just so you know, I've got a couple co-hosts with me in the room. I've got Steve Barclay,
Hello.
who's on cowbell
Steve.
today.
Yeah, I'm in charge of cowbell.
Yep,
You need more cowbell.
absolutely.
We decided that, and we have come through.
And we've also got Rob Minot.
Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
We are fantastic. Yeah, thanks so much for chatting with us today. We're eager to get going. It's our first episode of the new year, obviously.
Great.
Let's dive right in and let's go straight to talking about universal design. For any of our listeners who may not be familiar with the term itself, just give us a quick overview of what universal design is and why it's important.
Well, for me, I like to summarize universal design in a really simple phrase, which actually I think began with a group in Canada that was working in the schools. And I can't recall the name of the group right now, but it's what is essential for some, it's almost always useful for all. And when you think about universal design, I really see that in action. Probably the one really good example of that is closed captioning, where closed captioning was developed in the 1970s, to really benefit people who couldn't hear the content in a video program. But it turns out that now, people use it, turn on the captions in gyms when you're working out and the gym is really loud and, you still want to keep up with the news while you're on your treadmill or Stairmaster or whatever it may be. You can follow along with those captions, or in a busy airport where they often have the news on to keep travelers abreast of the weather and so on. Well, there again, the captions can be helpful, or even if it's just your significant other likes to go to bed at a different time and you want to watch the latest scores or highlights late in the evening. Well, again, you can turn on the captions and follow along. So again, that's that idea that you create these solutions that are intended to benefit people with disabilities, but in reality, they benefit us all, even if we don't have an identified disability. And we see that in the physical environment as well with curb cuts. It's
Right.
not just people who use wheelchairs that benefit from that, but it could be delivery people. It could be a repairman who's pushing, or repairwoman who's pushing a cart with heavy equipment on it. Will definitely appreciate that curb cut. So it's a flexible solution. It's basically designing with flexibility in mind so that it benefits a wide range of users.
Well, and I was listening to an interview that you did on your website, and I guess there's a graphic on your site that talks about, how there had recently been a snowfall, and the guy at the top of the stairs with the shovel. There's a guy at the
Right.
bottom of the stairs in a wheelchair, and the guy with the shovel says you're gonna have to wait till I clear the stairs.
Right.
Yet there's a wheelchair ramp, right beside it.
Right, and if you clear that ramp, then not
Everyone
only
can
can that
use it.
person in the wheelchair go up, but everybody else can as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I get the sense too that architecturally, it seems to be a concept that's been in place for a while. But in terms of technology, has been a lot slower to sort of adapt the idea of universal design. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say so. I think it's a little bit more tangible when it's out in the physical world, but especially as things move online, we really need to look at it as the online environment. It has the same like we need to build ramps in the online environment as well because we're relying on it for so much. There are people who cannot go to a supermarket to go shopping, and so they are able to log on and access a service. In fact, I just used one for the first time the other day, where you can order your groceries and have them delivered to your house, right? But if that website is not accessible, then that service is locked out for you. You're not able to access it.
Right.
Education, I completed much of my education online just because of as a person with low vision, and we'll probably get into that in a little bit. But as a person with low vision, navigation in the environment can be a challenge for me sometimes during certain times of the day. And so just being able to take online classes was a big help. Well, again, it doesn't always have to be a brick and mortar school, right? It could be an online school that can provide that education. But if it's not accessible, then again, people are locked out of that educational opportunity.
Right.
Whether it's looking for a job, you're not always going to a job center. A lot of times you're logging in somewhere and looking through job listings and submitting the application online. So this has real consequences when you ignore accessibility and universal design in the online environment, because that's where a lot of our lives are taking place now, from education to employment to entertainment, to services, government services and the like.
Sure, and I mean, yeah, and I would add to that, social media, social networks are incredibly important for virtual gathering, spaces for people, and
Absolutely.
again, if they're inaccessible or the devices and computers that are used to access those virtual spaces are inaccessible, then that is just completely locked out for an entire segment of society.
Well, and social media, like all of the things that I mentioned, social media can play a role in all of them. I know educators that use social media to create, online communities where people collaborate and share information. I know the government and government agencies use social media to disseminate information about services and resources that they have. And it's also, as you said, it's a great place of support. I personally have a condition that's fairly rare. And so the chances of me meeting somebody else with the same condition that I have is really remote in the physical world, let's say. But
Right.
Online, I've been able to meet many other people, and we rely on each other for support and tips and resources. I belong to a number of communities on Facebook, which have served me well in terms of just sharing resources that I can make use of as a person with a disability. And that's where a lot of the conversations taking place these days, whether it's breaking news. I often go to Twitter first before I turn on the news.
Right.
Because it's almost real time and I can get the latest information. But it's improving slowly, but it is improving, with sites like Twitter making it possible for people to put in descriptions for the images and so on. But it's an area where we need to do some more work.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads into my next question, which is, say over the past 5, 10 years, have you found that the conversation around universal design has become more active? Are more people talking about it?
I think so. I think there's more awareness of what it is. And a big part of that, I need to give some credit to some of the major companies
Sure.
like Apple,
Yep.
Google, Microsoft, because when they started incorporating accessibility features, into their products as like a built-in option, it really created a lot more awareness. And I now see people using inverted colors on their devices as not just an accessibility feature, but just a way that they customize the display for whatever their needs are. It's not always that they have low vision. Sometimes it's just that they want to use the device outside
Right.
in a high glare situation. I know people that are using some of the assistive touch features, for instance, to take screenshots, whatever it may be, that these features, people have found other uses for them. And so I think they've created a lot of awareness, and that helps kind of lower the barrier of entry to some of these features. And they've also become easier to use as well. I think where we need to work, do a little bit of work, and it's in the accessibility of the content that's accessed through these devices. Whether it's a website or a PDF or EPUB, which are used a lot in educational settings. It all needs to work together, right? It's like two sides of the same coin. There's the content, and then there's the delivery tools, and both need to work together.
How critical was the Americans with Disabilities Act to push forward some of the accessibility initiatives?
Oh, it was huge. I often, when I do presentations, I tell people that I consider myself lucky because I've grown up. I've never not known the ADA to be in place in terms of my life as a person with a disability, because I was diagnosed with my disability much later in life. So it's something, I have a condition called retinitis pigmentosa.
Right.
Okay.
Which some people know as, they call it tunnel vision, islands of vision. But basically, I have a restricted field of vision and difficulty with low light vision as well, and some other adjusting to light changes and the like. But I didn't know about it until I was, in my 30s is when I was diagnosed with it. So basically, I discovered accessibility and the need for it much later in life than a lot of other people with disabilities. And so I've known since the day I was diagnosed, I've known the ADA to be in place. And so I consider myself very lucky for that, because it's definitely created a lot of opportunity for me in terms of being able to pursue my education and employment opportunities and the like. But having said that, I also feel like there's been a backlash against the Americans with Disabilities Act. And a lot of it has to do with businesses seeing it as a regulation,
Right.
rather than understanding that it is about civil rights and human rights. So we get that within the disability rights community, but I think the environment right now is very much anti-regulatory, at least here in the United States.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so there is the danger of things like the ADA, where we make a lot of progress. We take a few steps forward, but we need to be on guard that we don't take too many steps back.
Yeah, that seems to be a common sort of point of friction. On the one hand, regulation is important, and in some ways it can be one of the ways to bring companies into line. We've had many guests on the show talk about how litigation is generally one of the only ways to really bring about real change. It's the one thing that companies respond to, unfortunately. But at the same time, it's frustrating because the flip side of that is that if companies would just start to realize that it's in their own best interest to make as much of their content accessible, because that's a whole nother demographic that could be using their product.
Right, absolutely. And it's important to make a business case for accessibility. And like you said, not only are you increasing your market, your potential market, but also you gain a lot of goodwill. So, and many other benefits, from everything from making your content easier to maintain to getting better SEO, a search engine optimization. There's so many sort of other benefits to pursuing accessible content and accessibility in general. So I think it needs to be a balanced approach, a carrot and a stick. I prefer to go with a carrot first and make a good case for why you should pursue accessibility from a positive approach. So let's focus on the benefits first. But as you said, sometimes there is no other recourse. And then you have to resort to the stick, which unfortunately is a lawsuit or a complaint.
Right. Well, yeah, and I mean, you really only need to look no farther than Apple to see, they did it right. And I mean, again, I have to agree with you 100%. You really have to give them credit for starting the ball rolling, because they're baked in accessibility features into, even the I guess it was maybe the second generation iPhone by the time that it really started to kick in. And everybody else followed suit. I mean, everybody's sort of been playing catch up to Apple for years and years, and they really, really showed the benefits of universal design into these new generation of products that we all take for granted at this point. We have computers in our pockets, right?
Right.
So it is a shame that more companies, and specifically, like you said, the content creators sort of are a little bit slower to catch on to that.
Yeah, and I think we we'll have to do some work in that area. I think one way we can do it is when we this is interesting because we're doing a podcast, but when we create content ourselves, we need to model accessibility. And so I try to do that in my own content that I put out, whether it's videos that I put up on YouTube, making sure that they're captioned, whether I create a PDF, making sure that it's tagged and so on. But the more we can model it, hopefully over time, it will be a movement that it may take a little bit of time, but there will be at some point a tipping point. Just like we saw it for devices, right? When one big player came out and modeled it for the industry, then it created a competition. And so maybe we can do that for content as well.
And it's true, and it does really trickle down. I mean, Microsoft has done some really major gains in terms of building a lot of really good accessibility tools into, say, their Office suite.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love their learning tools.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes we don't give them enough credit for that. But Microsoft has really been stepping up their game in the past 2 years as well.
Sure, absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
So who do you see as the rock stars these days of universal design? Who's really wowing you these days?
Ooh, I hate to sort of say one person, because I would like to see it be more of a movement, like a more widespread movement. And so, on Twitter, I try to follow a number of people. But for instance, my friend Yuting Su, who is out in California, she's at San Francisco State, and she's done a number of different projects over the years that are really exemplary. So she's one of the people that I look to for sort of, I would say, a model of good accessibility practices. And it helps that she's a teacher of the visually impaired. So she does a great job of modeling description, image description, and all of these different things that we need for accessibility. But there are a number of different people. I try to draw from different groups. So even though my background's in education, I try to be a little bit broader. WebAx, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Yep.
But I also follow that quite a bit. Always lots of great information coming out through that channel on Twitter. It's hard to pinpoint just like a few people. I think that's the beauty of social media, is that it's brought us all together to where we're together. We can do a lot more than just like an individual person can. And also the other thing that I would warn to, again, I've seen this happen at a lot of universities where there is a rock star, and that person brings about a lot of good changes. And unfortunately, at some point, that person decides to move on.
Yep.
Right.
And then the passion and the knowledge base kind of leaves with them. So I think it's important to just kind of build a broad base for accessibility, for it to be sustainable.
Yeah, it's very true. Oftentimes in large organizations, you do have that champion who's standing out there, trying to beat everybody else into alignment and to advocate for accessibility. And once they're gone, it just kind of collapses around them.
Right.
So I'm going to throw this out there. It's a really broad question, but why do you think we still face the hurdles that we're facing when it comes to universal design? Why is it taking so long when it seems there's so many groups and organizations fighting for it?
That's you just gave me the $1 million question.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, that's outside of our budget. Can we go back to a $1.50 question?
Right.
But I think part of it is to the rapid pace of technology is a big part of it. It seems like when you feel like you've kind of figured it out, then a new tool comes out and there's new capabilities, new things you can do with it. And so that's kind of one of the challenges is, just when we were kind of making some progress in terms of website accessibility, then social media came out.
Right.
Right. And so that was a new environment with more of a real time communication capabilities. And it seems like we're starting to make progress. And again, I want to sort of, give a shout out to Twitter for their image description capabilities. And Facebook is doing some work there as well with automatic image descriptions. And as we make progress on that, then, augmented reality.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when these things come out, we kind of tend to be enthralled by the capabilities of it. How cool it is and the bells and whistles that come with it. And then it just takes a while to kind of consider the implications of who's being left out.
Right.
If we don't, early on in the development of these technologies, don't consider that. But so I'm very concerned with augmented reality because and virtual reality. I've tried virtual reality and it does not work for me because I don't have the peripheral vision or the tracking to be able to take advantage of it. But I could see in the future where that becomes a sort of a dominant. I'm not sure that it will in some ways because of the technical requirements. But if it does, how do we ensure that people like myself are able to access content that's presented in that way? So in short, I don't have the definitive answer here, but I think that's part of the problem is that rapid pace of technology just means that we have to kind of be on guard and continue to be reflective about how we develop these things to make sure everybody can participate.
Yeah, and it's tricky too. Especially in the sense of AR, VR, I would say even to some degree haptics. A lot of these things are developed for the sort of the bang whiz wow factor,
Right.
without any real thought about some of the other implications of it. I mean, I always go to Google Glass for the example that I use, but I really think that the Google Glass has some real strong AT potential as a platform. There's potentially a lot that developers could do to use that platform and are actively doing. There's the ARIA
Right.
service for the visually impaired that's using it as a platform. But so these technologies are being developed without a real plan in place sometimes, and sometimes it just takes an outside developer or an entrepreneur or somebody to come in and go, wow, we've got this great AR technology. Let's use it to service this certain disability. And that's
Right.
kind of the exciting part about these new technologies and sort of the environment is that, thank God for these smaller entrepreneurs that are coming in and innovating.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Air. I had a chance to try it at the CSUN conference, and I was really pleased with it, with the descriptions that I got as I walked around the convention floor. I think you're right. I think sometimes it's a little bit harder for a big company to kind of, they try to focus on the sort of the marketing part of it and what's going to be cool and what's going to appeal to the broadest population.
Right.
And then a small developer like the people behind Era kind of see this more specific application of it. And I've seen other applications too, like different bands that you can wear that use haptics to detect obstacles and
Right.
so on, where it has a lot of potential there for improving access in the environment. So I wish somebody would put it all together.
That's right.
So put together the AR, VR, and then the haptics, and just kind of make it into a system.
I think it's coming.
Yeah, you're getting the information through a variety of modalities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's important to note that, the same technology that powers, Pokemon Go could certainly be used to power something for the visually impaired that would be incredibly useful. It's just a matter of someone needs to come in and make it.
And I would love to see the use of positional audio as well. Today I was actually working with a math application called Desmos Calculator, and they have some sonification built into their graphs, where
Really?
a tone lets you know that the slope of the line is going up. So I would love to see more of sort of that combination of different modalities, haptics, sound,
Yeah.
and the visuals as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that in the next 5 years, someone's going to make a lot of money if they can figure out how to marry all this stuff together. Because who knows? I foresee we're all going to have a heads up display in our eyes at some point.
Right, and with the pace of life, it's probably something we're all going to need to keep up with all the demands of daily life nowadays.
That's right. I need to be able to watch Netflix while I'm getting up and brushing my teeth and like built right into my eyes.
With closed captions on so that the shower doesn't drown it out.
It's so true.
There you go.
Let's talk a little bit about wearables. Is that kind of where you see the sort of the next new exciting technology?
Well, I was really into wearables for a little bit.
Yep.
I've cooled on them a little bit lately, and part of the reason was battery.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I could not. I don't know. I wanted something that would last a little bit longer than the number of wearables that I've tried can do right now. So I think that's the area where it needs to improve quite a bit. But also, I think they're kind of rethinking wearables, and in the sense that maybe when the Apple Watch came out, it was kind of overhyped.
Right.
and Android Wear the same thing. I don't know that we need apps on our wrist. What we need is just like maybe notifications, and so these very specific tasks. I use my wearables primarily for fitness, counting my steps
Sure.
and notifications through haptics. But having said that, there was one application that I really liked with the Apple Watch, which was the directions.
Okay. Yep.
Because I could walk around my neighborhood and the Apple Watch could help me with the directions using haptics. So that was something that was really, really cool. And but again, the battery life was an issue. I had the first generation Apple Watch, and I'm sure that it's improved dramatically with the second and the third generation. But at this point, for me, I don't know if it's like if the return on on the device would be enough to justify it.
Right.
And so I'm wearing a very simple watch right now from Garmin, and basically I just use it for fitness. So
Yeah.
I think they're kind of being redefined right now into more of a fitness accessory, which is where we started, by the way, with
Yeah.
things like
That's right.
Fitbits.
things like the Fitbit and so on.
Yeah.
So again, it's thinking about like what makes sense to have on our wrists. Like I remember when I first started looking at wearable apps, and I saw like the New York Times has an app, and USA Today has an app. And I was like, I'm not going to read articles on my wrist, So
Yeah.
sometimes you need to consider where that device is going to be used and where it's going to sit on your body, and what affordances there are based on that. I hate to throw cold water on wearables.
No, it's fine. It's interesting to get your perspective on it, because you've already gone through the arc. You've started off in fitness, come around to I'm not going to use it for that, and then come full circle back to the fitness stuff that started you down the path.
And I'm not leaving the door. I'm not closing the door. I'm just saying I would like to maybe wait a little bit and see if there are improvements in battery technology, and they get they improve a little bit to where I'll check it out again. I never close the door on any technology.
Yeah.
No,
And
I
I'm-
think
Because
I've been
of the example you just mentioned with the Google Glass, right? I dismissed the Google Glass, but then a company like Era comes around and they've created a service that's really valuable, and it's making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, I came into the wearables kind of from the opposite direction. I everything that I looked at, with the exception, I think, of the Google glasses, which I got pretty excited about. I don't have a visual impairment, and the idea of having that heads-up display on Google glasses was pretty exciting to me. And if they had added facial recognition, so that it would remind me of people's names, that would be for me like a panacea, because I am terrible with names. But the watches, man, I couldn't wrap my head around what I would want one of those watches for. Why I would want to have on my wrist the same stuff that I could get just by looking at my phone.
Well, and I think that's
Right.
what Apple and Google and even Microsoft, with their attempt at the band, they're still trying to figure out, what is this wearable? Like, if you want, is it a watch? Is it a fitness tracker? Like, where does this fit in? What are we going to do with this device? Because most people are probably using it for fitness.
Yes.
But but that being said, it does seem to be all about how it's being used. We interviewed a young lady from England named Molly Watts, who
I'm familiar with her work.
yeah, I mean, and she loves her Apple Watch,
Yep.
and it's all because of that. The app that
Haptic,
she used called Resound, that she just it's incredibly valuable and useful to her on a day-to-day basis. So, it all depends on how you're using it and what apps are being actively developed for that technology, I think.
Right.
Well, and I always tell people, develop the broadest or the most diverse toolkit that you can have. Like I even, I don't stop from considering low tech as well. I mean, the biggest technology that changed my life is my white cane.
Sure. Yeah.
There are there's no electronics in my white cane, but without it, I can't really navigate the world as easily or have as much independence as I, had before. And, it's a technology that made a big difference in my life. And just because it doesn't have electronics or big bells and whistles or doesn't do object detection or whatever it may
Yet.
be, doesn't mean that it's not useful.
No, they have them.
Oh, yes. Or Braille, right? I'm always a big, I always tell people learn Braille as well.
Yes.
because,
Yep.
Your technology can fail, or there may be situations where Braille is the right tool for the job. So,
Yeah,
with all these things, its context comes into play quite a bit as well.
that's one topic we always come back to is Braille. I saw somebody tweet this morning or yesterday about there's a bunch of teachers who, are refusing to teach Braille because technology can replace the Braille, and Braille is too hard to learn, and
I
yada
just wanna
yada yada.
Drag
right?
them
And
out behind the barn and smack them with a fence post.
And I'm totally blind, Louise, and not a strong Braille reader. I'm about to start Braille again, but it all comes back to literacy, right? Without that being able
Right.
to read and write, you're practically illiterate. Screen readers are not.
Right. And that's one area where I would like to see some disruption is the refreshable Braille displays.
Yeah.
So I've been following some of the developments. I think it's University of Michigan has a project where they're looking into new methods for developing a refreshable Braille display that's not based on mechanical
Right.
elements. But that's something that hasn't really changed a lot in a long time, and neither have the prices.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's the real problem too, is that Braille is so incredibly expensive to produce, and
Well, and
to have
to
access
access
to.
with the displays being
Right.
so expensive.
Yeah.
But hopefully somebody will come along, and it looks like there are a few projects that are working on that, on disrupting
Yep.
that area. And if they can produce a Braille display in say the $500 range, which is I think what they were aiming for, that would be really cool.
Yeah, that's going to change the game. If the first person who manages to do it,
Yep.
that's
We're all
gonna-
waiting for it.
That's going to change everything.
Yep.
And I guess the other thing I would say is, we've been talking about universal design, but I also work in education, and I'm a big advocate for universal design for learning,
Right.
which is, universal design is in the name and it's part of it, right? We need to remove barriers, but there's a lot more to that. It has to do with motivation, and being able to recruit a learner's interest and being able to sustain that interest so that they're able to, learn, and also providing a meaningful challenge, right? Because the whole goal is not to kind of dumb down education, right? The goal is to keep up the challenge, but at the same time, remove these unnecessary barriers.
Right.
So an example is if you struggle with print, and print is the only thing we provide you in school, then, schooling is going to be a pretty frustrating experience for you, and your motivation is going to suffer. But if we can provide that same information in a variety of formats, and you can find the one that works best for you, then you can really focus on the meaning of that content and whatever the goal is of that lesson. So rather than just struggling with the mechanics of learning, you can focus on the meaning.
And I'm noticing that a lot more and more. I recently just started a new job working for Steve here. Yay. And just going through past customers and reaching out to post-secondaries and colleges and universities, all of their websites are touting, their accessibility departments, their alternative formats for your different disabilities, whether it's low vision, blindness, cognitive, whatever. They all have a blurb on their website about making accommodations for you, individualized accommodations. So it's really exciting to see that.
Right. But I think, I guess where I see a difference is that the accommodations, they kind of solve the problem for one student.
Right.
And then one more student, and then one more student. But it's more of an ad hoc approach. And it would be better if we sort of focus on systemic factors
Sure.
Yeah.
and sort of creating a culture of accessibility and universal design. And so that's one of the goals of universal design for learning, is to it's not just impacting a single learner, but also impacting the institution itself, so that it too is learning.
Well, I think too, sometimes, we toss around the word accessible and accessibility. And really, what does that term mean? To you, Louise, it might mean something totally different than it does to me. Right? So, what is the proper term? What word is going to make the mainstream look at their products, their platforms, and say, okay, we need to broaden this out so that it works for everybody? Is the word accommodation? Because accessibility doesn't seem to mean anything.
Well, that's a really interesting question. And for me, I try to focus on what's the big picture. And for me, it's equity.
All right.
So
good word.
If we focus on equity, then everything kind of is in service of that. And that's what I mean by looking at it more in a systemic way, because it's easy to focus on, say, the pedagogy from the perspective of an educator like myself, or the materials if you're more of a developer, or the devices if you're more of somebody who implements technology or integrates technology. But really, it's when they all come together that you kind of get to that sweet spot. And that sweet spot is all about equity and opportunity. So if we were to reframe it that way, I think we get closer to the goals of things like the UN Conventions on the Rights of People with Disabilities, right? Where this is really about civil and human rights. Everything else is just a means to get there.
Well, I think you got the ding, ding, ding word of the year: equity.
Was that hold on, wait. Someone say it again.
Equity.
There you go.
All right.
Ditch accessibility. We want equity.
That's right.
Equality.
Equitable access.
That's right.
But and I just saw this. I mean, thinking back to the stairs versus ramp conversation we had earlier. I mean, if you really think about it in an architectural sense, why do we even make stairs anymore?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, why doesn't every building just have ramps? Because ramps work for everybody. Stairs only work for a segment. Why even waste time making stairs?
Or even, why do we need the ramp? We could just build an accessible entrance where the ramp is not even necessary.
Yeah.
And I've seen a number of buildings like that where it's just convenient for everybody. I mean, if you're not careful, even if you are sighted, you can still fall down the stairs. So it's not
that's true.
The best solution.
Very true.
That's why in Vegas they just have those people movers.
That's right.
Because too many people falling down the stairs after a night at the casino, and they don't want that.
Well, how many nights do you sit and watch the news and you hear somebody texting walking into traffic, right?
But no, it does. It brings up an interesting point, and I think that it could very well be that universal design is there's some pain there, because it does require rethinking everything, the way that we've done things in the past for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily, as a society and as a way of thinking, it's not necessarily always easy to do.
And I think, when people think about universal design, they do still think in some ways about the retrofits.
Yeah.
Like they think about that building that, was under construction for a couple of weeks while they put in the ramp.
Right.
But we have a chance now with a lot of new buildings for people to see universal design as something that is elegant, right? And that same thing with websites, right? People think of, it's a text-only website. Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't have to be a text-only website. It can be just as beautiful as any other website. It's just a lot of the accessibility is behind the scenes, right? In the coding, in the markup. And so I think that's a big part of it, is kind of changing perceptions of, accessibility can have aesthetic value too. and it can be elegant when it's done right.
Wow, there's another phrase: elegant accessibility.
Oh, Ryan, now you're just getting greedy.
This is
I'm
awesome.
going to give you the cowbell.
He just wants more cowbell.
Louise, we're having you on the show again in February.
Well, there is so much more that we could talk about. If we had a 3-hour podcast, I mean, there's the onset of the digital assistant, smart homes. I mean, I think is another really great merging of something that's very appealing in a mainstream way, yet at the same time has some real concrete AT potential.
Oh, now that you mention that, hold on a second.
Okay.
Hey Google, turn off the lights.
Sure, turning 3 lights off.
There you go.
Yep.
So I have speakers all over my house. So if anybody at Amazon and Google's listening, you got me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got me
absolutely.
too.
Yeah. Ryan's the
Because,
same way.
I'm using all of them just to try them out, and it's a big help for me with the lights and having a visual impairment. I have mine set up so that they come on when I first get to my development. So when I get into the house, everything is all ready to go for me, and I'm ready to work and so on. And I can see uses for people with motor difficulties as well.
Absolutely.
There are so many devices that have buttons and have knobs, and that can be a problem. Well, with a voice assistant, you can get around that. But again, no one device is perfect.
That's
because
right.
What if you have a speech disability?
Yep.
Yes.
So we always have to sort of consider that what's important is providing options for how people access the information and how they interact with these devices.
The universal design conversation really needs to continue to grow and to continue to be had.
But it needs to be
Right.
had earlier on in the process in a lot of cases. It has to be something that, developers are starting off their process with that in mind.
Well, and it has to go back to the how you become a developer, like as part of your training and education. And that's something that I emphasize as an educator is we need to start when our teachers are still in college.
Right.
And once they go out into the profession, you are in survival mode.
Right.
And it gets more and more difficult to sort of be open to new ideas or new ways of doing things because, like I said, you're in survival mode for those first few years. And I'm sure it's the same thing for developers. When you go out there, you have the requirements of the projects that are thrown in front of you. So it, like you said, it has to start early on with the professional development of each person for it to take hold, like as a integral part of what you do as a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part of the equation, I think, is the community itself. We've talked to many developers who have said the same thing, which is, if they hear enough noise from a community, they take notice. And so, I think it's important for anybody with any sort of impairment to be vocal. To if there's an app that isn't accessible, contact the makers of that app and tell them that you would like their app to be accessible, that there's a demand for it. Because once companies and developers see that demand, they're going to respond to that.
And I've done that a
Absolutely.
couple times, and the developers have been more than responsive. They're like, "Wow, I never thought of that. That's a great idea. Thanks for letting me know."
Yep.
Absolutely. I would also add just to let them know when they do it right as well.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure. Absolutely.
And celebrate, those developers that are doing the right thing because, it kind of lifts them up and lets them know that the effort that they put in is appreciated. And hopefully they'll spread the word to other developers, other people that they come into contact with. So both highlight where there's need for improvement and a need to do more, but also celebrate the small victories.
Excellent. See that, and that's a perfect place to end it. We'll end it on a high note.
Yeah.
right? With the word victory.
Victory.
But we should ask Luis. Is there anything that you want to plug, or do you mention where people can find you? Anything at all?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @IonAccess, EYEONAXS, like Sam. So X like xylophone, S like Sam. And then I actually now work for the National Accessible Educational Materials Center at CAST. Today's my first day.
Whoa, congratulations.
I will be a technical assistant specialist. And so I encourage everybody to visit our website. It's aem.cast.org. And so if you want to learn about accessibility and, everything from early learning to workforce development, the AIM Center is really your go-to source.
Awesome. Luis, thanks so much for taking some time and chatting with us about universal design.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy the conversation.
Awesome. And you know what? We'll reach out and we'll talk again. We'll, maybe in a couple months, and we'll see where we're at again.
Sure. Take care, guys.
Okay. Bye. Excellent. Oh, that felt good. That was nice talking a little universal design again.
Yeah.
Wealth of knowledge, wealth of information.
Yeah. It is. It really is a fascinating topic.
There's so many facets to it, right?
Yep.
Like you said, the digital assistants, the home automation, just buildings.
Well, and there's just, you're right. I mean, there's just there's the technology itself, which is, it's neutral. It's just a technology. It's all about what you then use that technology for. Like, what kind of apps are you building? I feel like they're just the communities need to let developers know that there are demands for these types of things.
Yeah, and I think, you sent an article regarding a, I guess accessible, I hate that word, but an accessible apartment building for people with disabilities in Calgary.
Right.
We've got to get them on the show and just kind of talk to them about what their planning process was and what their motivation was to do something like that.
Yeah, because really, I mean, every apartment building should be that. I mean,
exactly.
It shouldn't be in the news. It just should be the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many buildings do you go into where the elevators still just, they don't talk? There's no braille.
And it really is just
there's
mindset.
braille on
the buttons.
any
Yes.
new one now.
New ones, yes.
But yeah, you're right. Unless you're counting dings and you know exactly how many floors there are, but
you're lost.
Yeah. How the hell do you know which floor to get out on?
Yeah.
Because some buildings, there's lobby, then 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you might think 1 was 2 and 2 was 3, and
and sometimes
on the wrong floor.
Sometimes lobby is ground.
Yeah.
Yep.
And God help you if somebody walks on with you. If 5 people get on and 17
Hit
people
buttons.
press buttons.
Good luck.
And it's like, well, where are we now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I guess we solved all the world's problems today, guy.
Maybe
I think we just threw more on the pile.
No, because the world's biggest problem was a lack of cowbell.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe every time there's a lull, we can just
Cowbell.
There you go.
fill the lull with some.
Yeah, a little bit of cowbell.
All right. Well, we'll be.
Or because it does have such a unique wave sign when we're recording, we could use it to place mark gaffes and things.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
It'd be like, you, Ryan.
Yeah.
I gotta go find Linda's.
Oh, now we're all going to arm ourselves with
That's
cowbells.
right.
That's
That's
great.
Right? That's going to be a great podcast. People are going to really tune into that.
You never know what people will enjoy.
It's just a bunch of cowbell followed by pronouns. I don't know. Don't understand the appeal of this podcast.
Wow, look at our followers. It leaped.
That's right.
Turns out people love cowbell.
That's right.
Christopher Walken is a big fan. All right. Geez, I forgot how to do this. It's been too many weeks between shows. Hey, Ryan.
Rob,
Where can people find us?
they can find us online at www.atbanter.com. No Yes.
What? What, you were unsure?
I forgot. I was
Oh, you
like,
see, I know. Now,
I didn't know whether to
Just
give
be
the
glad you
email
don't-
address or the website.
now you just be glad you don't have to navigate the email address like I do. They can also email us if they so desire at atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
That is correct. And we can also be found on Facebook. We can be found on Twitter. Snapchat?
No,
No Snapchat? Okay.
No.
Oh, do you want a Snapchat? We can put it on Snapchat.
Instagram?
we are on Instagram.
Yeah, we are.
Instagram. There
Which
you
we're going to start using this year. That's my New Year's resolution that I'm just making up right now.
Really?
Excellent.
Yep, we're gonna IG it up.
go. Alrighty.
We're gonna be IGAF.
Yeah. If you say so.
All right.
Plus cowbell? My God. Look
I
at
know,
us.
it's
Look at us
crazy.
moving forward.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah?
Where the heck can people find Canadian Assistive Technologies on the web?
Well, Canadian Assistive Technologies is at www.canasstech.com.
Great. And what do you do over there?
Well, we do all kinds of assistive technology in particular for low vision and blindness, but not completely limited to it. We also do a lot of stuff for physical disabilities and a little bit of stuff for augmentative communication as well.
Excellent. We should also mention our good friend, Mr. Rick Chant, who occasionally calls.
Did not put his phone on Do Not Disturb.
No, I did actually for an hour,
Dun, 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 dun.
but apparently that hour's up.
Share it with the class.
Yeah.
You should- anytime someone's phone goes off, we should just make them. You have to.
Make
now
them
you have
read
to. You make. You have to answer it on the show.
Well, if you want to talk to Abby, I can.
Dad, what's for dinner?
It is dinner time.
It is almost dinner time.
What was I saying? Oh yeah. Okay. We should also mention our good friend, Mr. Rick Chant, who joins us on occasion. He runs a little outfit called Chaos Technical Services, and he services all manner of assistive technologies. So if your CCTV has broken, if you need a power supply for your talking book player, he can certainly help you out. The URL for him is www.chaostechnicalservices.com, and his phone number is on the website.
Well done.
Nicely covered there.
Thank you.
He can also be emailed at chaostech@shaw.ca.
That's it. That is it for the first show of 2018. Thanks, as usual, to all our listeners for listening in. I have been Rob Minot.
I'm Steve Barkley.
And I'm still Ryan.
Ryan who?
Ryan Fleury.
You sure?
I am
Okay.
for today.
We will see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.